time now for French Connections, our weekly look at the intricacies of life here in France with Florence Villeneuve. Hi, Flo. Today we're going to focus about smoking. And when you think about the stereotypical French person, you do often imagine someone with a glass of wine in one hand and a cigarette in the other. I guess the question is, how true is the stereotype?
Well, it is certainly something that tourists say when they come to France. It's one of the first cultural shocks they get is this whiff of smoke in their faces. And it's true that there are some cultural differences. Smoking is still very much associated with the arts and festive debauchery rather than a lack of self-control. And part of the reason why many people, especially Anglophones, might associate smoking with France is because the English word cigarette comes from the French word cigarette. But our word du jour is not cigarette, it's the slang word for cigarette, which is clope. This is something you might hear, est-ce que je peux te prendre une clope? Can I please have a cigarette?
Now, it's true, this idea that France is a nation of heavy smokers has persisted. But interestingly, recent statistics suggest the opposite.
Indeed. Now, you might remember I already did a show on smoking, and at the time I did suggest that the stereotype was very much true, but things have changed since because essentially new statistics have come out. You can see them here. From 2016 to 2017, the number of people smoking on a daily basis dropped by 1 million. Now remember, the French population is 67 million, so a drop of 1 million is quite a lot. You can see it here in terms of percentage. 18 to 75-year-olds in 2016, 29.4% of people said they smoked on a regular basis, and here in 2017, 26.9%. So it's quite a drop there. Could this be a really deep cultural change that we're seeing? Well, that's certainly what public officials hope, but if we listen to the health minister, Agnès Buzyn, she wants to go even further.
We still have around 26 to 27% of smokers. We absolutely must drop down to the rate of Anglo-Saxon countries that have around 15 to 16%.
And it's true, public health officials have been trying to crack down on smoking for years because, of course, the consequences are alarming. It's estimated that 200 people die every day due to smoking-related illnesses. But for years, it seems like the government's anti-tobacco policies just weren't working.
And part of that might have to do with the fact that French people just don't like being told what to do. Let's take a look at what the government has been doing. Basically, back in 2007, the government banned smoking in closed spaces. So that means offices, restaurants, cafes, for instance. But that didn't really work. People essentially kept smoking, but just started doing it outside. You might be familiar with the scene in the terrasse. People won't necessarily be indoors. They'll be outdoors, whether it's rain or shine, whether it's freezing outside or sweltering, they'll be outside smoking. Now, what is effective this time? Why have we seen 1 million people stop smoking in a year? Well, it seems to be a combination of factors, including changing the packaging. Ever since January 2017, all cigarette packs are neutral, and essentially there are no logos, just dissuasive photos and warnings that you shouldn't be smoking, etc. Now, on top of that, in parallel, there has been a major increase in the price of cigarettes. In fact, the aim is to have a pack cost 10 euros by 2020, and keep in mind that it was about 4 euros in 2013. This price hike seems to be very effective.
I've cut down from a pack and a half a day to a pack.
I know I have to quit. A lot of people are quitting around me, and it's getting expensive.
Now, the government's also trying to help people quit by reimbursing those who use tobacco substitutes.
That's right. France's generous social protection program, Sécurité Sociale, now reimburses part of nicotine patches and nicotine chewing gum. And this, too, also seems to be effective. Let's listen to some pharmacists.
It's good for people who don't earn a lot of money. It means they can try and stop smoking without having to spend a fortune.
A lot more people are trying to stop these days. Will they succeed? I don't know, but we've been selling a lot more of these kinds of products recently.
So the government is trying to get people to stop smoking, but it also wants to avoid people starting in the first place. And it's true, something I still find shocking after all these years is that people in France experiment with tobacco at a very young age.
Do keep in mind that it's illegal to sell tobacco to anyone who's younger than 18 years old, but it's true that the average age of experimenting with tobacco is quite young, typically around 12 years old when you're entering middle school. And here again, there is some progress. In the last, since 2012, the number of teens smoking on a daily basis has gone down by 24%, but there's still a lot of peer pressure.
When you get to high school, it's cool. You smoke to be like everyone else.
It's normal at our age to experiment, just as long as we don't get addicted.
Public health measures are starting to kick in. These days, young people live in a world where they're less surrounded by tobacco and alcohol than they were 20 years ago.
Now, recently, authorities have started asking if the key to changing smoking culture is changing culture itself.
Because smoking is arguably romanticized in French culture, particularly on the silver screen. And, you know, when you think about French cinema stars like Catherine Deneuve or Brigitte Bardot, you often imagine them puffing on a cigarette. And it's not just the bad guys in French cinema. Now, in 2017, the health minister, once again, Agnès Buzyn, she raised some eyebrows by suggesting that French filmmakers should stop showing people smoking in their films, and this really hit a raw nerve. A lot of people said, you know, this was the first step to kind of a puritanical, moralistic cinema, but she said she was really misunderstood.
I just wanted to raise awareness about the fact that 80% of French films show people smoking. In the US, it's 48%. All studies show that when young people see smoking on a screen, they're encouraged to light up. I certainly didn't want to ban smoking from the silver screen.
Now, there is a lot of progress. Is this a real cultural change we're going to have to see in the years to come? But as of yet, there still is that reputation that France is a chain-smoking nation because it is seen as somewhat of a rebellious romantic act here. It's kind of a rejection of a Puritan society that's constantly promoting self-betterment. For instance, you know, you should eat vegetables, you should do yoga, you should stop smoking. That might sound great, but many people in France are attached to the fact that you can do whatever you want with your body, even if you're smoking.
It's true. It is a long love affair between the French and their cigarette. Florence Villeminot, thank you so much for that latest French Connections on smoking here in France. Don't forget, if you have any other questions for Flo, either on France or the French, you can send her a tweet at Flo Villeminot.